everyone. Today for this video, I want to read um, some excerpts from the book. This is The Verbally Abusive Relationship, written by Patricia Evans. This lady, she is, I believe, a psychologist. Who came to write these books. She did, I think there's like 5 or 6 in the series about abusive relationships, the behavior patterns of abusive relationships, and also she did another one on the controlling people and explaining the controlling mindset. Very good books. I tore through 3 of them in 2 weeks last summer when my marriage was at the end stage and things were really falling apart fast. And when I had my aha moment and realized there is truly something deeply disturbed in my husband. He's not normal. This is not normal. And I knew there was some kind of mental dysfunction going on. I read these books, and this is what really, really opened my eyes, made me realize how toxic my marriage was, how bad of a situation we were raising our children in. And so I'm going to go through. This is chapter 8, the characteristics and categories of verbal abuse. And I'm probably going to do more than one video on this just to kind of break it up. I'm going to start off with where she just goes over the general characteristics of verbal abuse. And I know a lot of people scoff and think that verbal abuse is not really abuse, but it's really psychologically damaging to the target. And she explains why. She defines verbal abuse as words that attack or injure, that cause one to believe the false, or that speak falsely of one. Verbal abuse constitutes psychological violence. So now she's going to go through the general characteristics of verbal abuse. Number 1, verbal abuse is hurtful. It is especially hurtful when it is denied. When the partner's perception of the abuse is discounted and there's no validation of her reality. Part of her hurt is her confusion. So you're basically, you may convey to the abusive spouse, I'm hurt by what you just said. I'm hurt by how you behaved or how you embarrassed me, or, in front of our friends or our family. And then they discount, oh, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. You're making a big deal out of nothing. No one cares. You're being ridiculous, or, you're crazy. That's another popular one. Number 2, verbal abuse attacks the nature and abilities of the partner. They will actually, through repeated attacks, they make you feel as if you're the problem. You're the reason for their bad behavior. Verbal abuse may be overt, such as angry outbursts and name calling, which was typically that was most of the type of verbal abuse that I got. Very overt, very middle school bullyish style, name calling and just explosions when he didn't get his way. Or they can be covert, which are very, very subtle, like brainwashing. And he would use the covert techniques also, especially when he was in trouble after an explosion and I was getting to the end of my rope and he knew he was in trouble, and he sensed maybe I was thinking about leaving, and so then he just switched. He wouldn't exactly behave himself, he'd just stop yelling and he'd switch to more covert tactics. Like he'd insult me but with a smile on his face, and then when I'd call him out on it, he'd say he was just joking, and then I can't take a joke. She says overt verbal abuse is usually blaming and accusatory and consequently confusing to the partner. Covert verbal abuse is hidden aggression, which is even more confusing to the partner because Its aim is to control her without her even knowing it. Number 4, verbally abusive disparagement may be voiced in an extremely sincere and concerned way. They will actually make it seem like they're concerned about you. They're trying to make you think that you're the crazy one, and then they'll disguise it as, I'm concerned about you. You seem a little stressed. You seem easily confused. You seem very forgetful, and there's actually very good explanation for those types of things that end up happening when you're the target, especially over an extended period of time. It does start to affect things like short-term memory and executive function. Number 5, verbal abuse is manipulative and controlling, and that's what it's meant to be. They want to maintain control of the situation, and they will say and do anything to win, because that's what it's ultimately about. It's about winning. It's about them having power over you, or whatever situation it is that you're in. And it's very childish. It's about winning. It's about who's on top. Number 6, verbal abuse is insidious. It's meant to disregard, disrespect, or devalue the partner, to gradually diminish self-esteem or self-worth, cause the target to lose self-confidence without even realizing it. The partner may consciously or unconsciously try to change behavior so as not to upset the abuser. And this is a defense mechanism that the victim develops in order to protect themselves from further abuse. I can tell you, looking back, I had a lot of this type of behavior. I was constantly modifying my behavior to suit him, merely to avoid an explosion, just to keep his mouth shut so he wouldn't start a stupid fight. And especially after the kids came, and I knew it wasn't good for them to be hearing us fighting all the time, it was especially bad, because then I was really on high alert, on guard all the time, trying to make sure nothing happened that would piss him off or make him unhappy, because then he would explode and it would scare the kids and upset me. And just so, yeah, you will and not even realize. Sometimes it's conscious, but a lot of times it's unconscious. You get so into the habit of walking on eggshells and conducting yourself in such a way so as not to piss them off, even when it's fake. Like, some of my behavior was completely fake, and I'll get into that in other videos. But there were times where, yeah, I was a completely fake person when dealing with him, merely to keep his mouth shut, to keep him happy, so that he wouldn't have one of his little preschool temper tantrums. Let's see. Number 7, verbal abuse is unpredictable. Sometimes, yeah, it shocks you, it stuns you. You never know when it's coming. And a lot of time, I started to notice, I guess about midway through the marriage, that these explosions seemed to be tied to his stress level. So if there was something going on in his life that was stressing him out, whether it was like a family situation or a situation, a disagreement with a friend, or uncertainty or stress at work, I always knew when he had a bad day, because he would come home and pick a fight with me over something stupid, something completely moronic. He would blow out of proportion an innocent question I asked, or an innocent comment I made, or even if, we were watching a TV show and I gave my opinion on what they were discussing on the TV show, he would like start an argument with me. And some of these arguments, I mean, it was like mind numbing, like would go on for hours, and to the point where I would be like, I don't even care about X, whatever topic we were arguing about. I don't even care anymore. I just want to go to bed. I really, you're right, I'm wrong. What I would say, whatever I needed to say to get him to shut up. Then, of course, then he'd start arguing with me about me just capitulating and saying what he wanted to hear. Number 8, verbal abuse is the issue, the problem in the relationship. She states here, when a couple is having a real argument about a real issue, like how to discipline their children or how much time to spend apart or together, both parties may feel angry. But they can say, this is what I'm feeling angry about. This is what I want. And eventually there's goodwill on both of their parts, and the issue can get resolved. In a verbally abusive relationship, however, there is no specific conflict. The issue is the abuse, and this issue is not resolved. Another way to say this is that there's no closure. The issue's never going to be resolved. If you've ever heard of a circular argument, this is a tactic they all like to use. Nothing ever gets resolved. They'll keep repeating the same arguments over and over again. And sometimes they'll have like more than one topic, and you'll go around the circle and he'll say his point and you'll say, no, I don't agree. This is how I see it. And then you'll argue for that a little while and then move on to the next topic, and you go around the circle and around the circle and around the circle. And it's almost like they think like the more they bully you and wear you down, that you're eventually going to agree with them. And I can remember times I would just keep saying, I'm never going to change my answer. You keep asking me the same question. This is my answer. I'm not changing it. So we can just agree to disagree. I'm going to continue the list of characteristics of verbal abuse on another video. So thanks for listening.